Happy Wednesday, everybody. Our devotional for this week. Last week we started on Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Our church secretary, Lori Swanson, gave me this verse, said it's her life verse. And so we've been talking about the last week and this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. So last week I said, the main idea, the main thrust of this verse is found on the edges, the two outside lines. It's trust in the Lord with all your heart. That's the instruction, and then it comes with a promise, and He will make your path straight. So the image I used last week is kind of that of a GPS, a map. This idea that the broad instruction is to trust in the Lord, and when we do, He's going to straighten our paths. He's going to get us where we want to go, just like you plug in the coordinates on your phone and then you just trust it. You trust your phone's going to get you where you need to be. That's the big picture here. That's the big picture of this verse. But I want to come back this week now to the verse and talk about the two lines in the middle. Right? So if the big picture is trust in the Lord and He'll make your path straight, the two lines in the middle are there to sort of fill in what it looks like to trust in the Lord. And so the image I have in mind here, if we've been talking about a map as sort of the big picture and thinking of this verse as sort of instructions for this journey of life, I see the two middle parts as more of representative of like the series of choices we need to make every day. Like if you're on this journey and you want to get from here to there, but in the process you're going to come to crossroads, you're going to come to forks in the road where you're going to have an option. Multiple times a day, multiple days out of the week, where you're going to be presented with these options where the Scripture says you're going to have a choice to make, whether you're going to lean on your own understanding, whether you're going to do things your way, or whether you're going to submit yourself to the Lord. And so those two middle lines, I want to talk about those a little today. So we'll go back to the verse, start with that first line, lean not on your own understanding, focus in on those words, lean not. When my kids were younger, we would, after supper time, we would do Bible memory verses at the table. And in order to help us learn all of it, not just the kids, we would kind of make up actions to go along with the words of the verse. And so over time, with multiple verses, different words would get repeated. We'd kind of keep the same action. So like, king would be putting a crown on, or our praise would be to sing and wave our hands. And whenever we came to the word trust, the action we would use would be kind of like this. We'd lean into it, right? Because I think that's what that word is supposed to imply. If you're going to lean on something, that means you trust it. There's this implicit faith that whatever you're leaning against is going to hold your weight, that it's going to bear you up. But the problem here is this line says, lean not, right? So this isn't an invitation to come and lean into your own understanding. It's actually a warning sign. Don't lean. You come to the edge of the Grand Canyon, and there's a fence there, and it's got a sign that says, don't lean on this, don't sit on this. Maybe because it won't bear your weight, maybe because the posts are starting to rot out, maybe because what's on that other side there is pretty darn dangerous. So you have to be careful what you're going to put your trust in, what you're going to lean into. And so when we look at the verse, it says, lean not on your own understanding. The warning here is that when we come to these choices in life, these crossroads in life, one of the temptations is going to be to think we know what's best. We're going to think we've got our perception of the situation, our wants and desires are appropriate and right. And so in this particular case, we're going to just sort of do it our way. We're going to lean on our own understanding of the situation. But the warning here is that's dangerous. In fact, another proverb is kind of a dark proverb. Proverb 14, verse 12 says, there's a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. And so the Proverbs are warning us here, when we think we know, when we think our way is going to work, that we have to be careful. That road, that path often leads to something less than ideal. So what should we do instead? Back to the verse. It says, in all your ways submit to Him. Instead of leaning on our own understanding, obviously we're supposed to trust in the Lord. We're supposed to lean into Him. And a lot of you probably have this memorized. I know I did. I have this memorized slightly different. I have it as, in all your ways, acknowledge Him. In fact, the 2011 NIV is what I'm using here, but the 1984 version of the NIV uses the word acknowledge. The King James Version, which many of us have memorized, uses the word acknowledge. And I think the reason for the change is not because there's something wrong with this word acknowledge, especially as it was originally translated here, but maybe we've changed our understanding of what that word means. You know, today, if you're going to acknowledge someone, it's like you got this picture of walking down the street, and you see somebody walking, you know, and you kind of nod your head towards them, you kind of give them a wave, maybe give them the finger guns, you know, you sort of acknowledge, hey, I see you, yep, there you are, and then you walk by, and that's what we mean to acknowledge. And what's meant here is obviously something much more significant than this. You know, this isn't, you know, when you score a touchdown in a football game, point to heaven, acknowledge God, and, you know, and then go on with your life. That's not what we're being asked to do here. There's something deeper. The word that gets translated as acknowledge is in Hebrew the word yada. I don't think this is the source of the phrase yada, 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 but it's actually a frequent word in the Old Testament. It means to know. So you can see how you get acknowledge out of that, but it's a very frequent word. It's a word with a range of meanings, but it's a word that gets at beyond just to know, to recognize someone, to have a surface knowledge. It implies an intimacy, a depth of knowledge, even a commitment in that knowledge. And so when that verse says, in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, really, I think the update here that the NIV uses to submit is a good one. It's this idea that we're going to know God's ways. We want to know God's. We want to seek out and know God's ways. And then not only do we want to, you know, tip our hat to, oh yeah, that's what God says we want to submit to that. We want to live our lives in accordance with His will and what He says is the best path and the right way. And so we come to the crossroads of life, and instead of leaning into our own knowledge, we lean into the wisdom of God. And when should we do that? Well, in all our ways. It's really, this is the tough part of this verse, I think, right? In all our ways. It's not just the big things. Right? You know, if you've got like a choice of whether you're going to steal from that store or not, well, yeah, oh, no, I'm going to lean into God. I won't do that. It's not just, you know, how we act on Sunday morning, not just how we act when our church friends are around. In all our ways, in all our choices, every decision we have in life, every time we're confronted with a choice to go our own way or to go God's way, we're being encouraged, we're being urged to lean into God in everything we do. So I thought what we'd do, maybe to wrap this up and try to make it a little practical, is I thought I'd give an example of maybe one of those crossroads in life, one I'm sure we've all faced, and honestly, if we're honest, I'm sure it's one we've all made the wrong choice before, but let's just think about one of those crossroads where we're in possession of information. Right? We know something. It's a secret. It's something that happened. Maybe it's a little bit, you know, embarrassing for that other person. Maybe it's a little bit scandalous. Maybe, you know, it's something we know they'd probably rather not be widespread and well known. And yet, now that we're in possession of that knowledge, that temptation to the attention that comes from being the bearer of this news and just that little thrill that comes from coming to somebody and say, hey, did you hear about? Right? And then that choice, whether we're going to gossip or whether we're going to show discretion. So I can understand the temptation, why that thrill exists. Proverbs 18:8 says this, the words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. There's something about having that juicy knowledge that just kind of feels and tastes so good to us. And so the choice we have to kind of lean into our own understanding, to to be the one who gets to share that secret, to be the one that gets to engage in spilling the tea. But here's what happens, Proverbs 16, verse 28. You go that way, there is a way that seems right to man, but ends in destruction. A perverse person stirs up conflict, a gossip separates close friends. Here's what's at risk. You're putting your relationships at risk. You're adding to the strife. You're adding to the conflict. So that's our choice. Are we going to go our own way? Are we going to lean into our own understanding? Are we going to submit ourselves to God? What does God say about gossip? Well, Proverbs 10, verse 19. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. God says, be prudent. Hold your tongue. Don't add to the conflict. Don't stir up the conflict. Help to bring it down. In fact, here's another proverb. I love that Proverbs 26:20, the image here, without wood, a fire goes down. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. Instead of adding logs to the fire of the drama, we have that choice. We have that option of in all our ways, submitting to God, holding our tongue, stepping outside of the drama, showing respect for our friend, discretion on their behalf. So back to our crossroads. In all our ways, we can check out God's will and we can submit to it. We can refuse to go our own way, to trust in our own understanding. We can trust in the Lord with all our heart, knowing that He's going to direct our paths. I want to wrap up our look at these great verses just by reading a paragraph here from Matthew Henry's commentary, which I think just captures in some beautiful language the whole heart of these verses. Those who know themselves find their own understandings a broken reed which, if they lean upon, will fail. Do not design anything but what is lawful, and beg God to direct thee in every case, though it may seem quite plain. In all our ways that prove pleasant, in which we gain our point, we must acknowledge God with thankfulness. In all our ways that prove uncomfortable, and that are hedged up with thorns, we must acknowledge Him with submission. It is promised, He shall direct thy paths, so that they shall be safe and good and happy at last.